In our last video, we talked about what MEL means in a broader sense, its history, and its place in the world. Now, it's time to move on to the second module, which is about program cycles, theories, and defining program contours. Let's get started by understanding what a program and project is. A project refers to a specific endeavor to deliver tangible outputs. It is executed and managed for a particular duration of time with a definite beginning and end date. It has a clear aim because it is a one-time undertaking. Constructing a building or researching to develop a new manufacturing process is an example of a project. On the other hand, we have a program. A program is a set of multiple projects, managed and delivered together as a single package. They are designed to achieve a common benefit. Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana is an example of the same. Interventions for social development are planned and carried out in the form of a project or program that goes through a cycle. This cycle is called the project cycle. Let's understand each component of a program cycle in detail. First up is situation analysis. It is a critical phase of the project management cycle that involves evaluating the internal and external factors that can affect the project's success. This analysis helps in identifying the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the project. Suppose a company is planning to launch a new product. In that case, a situation analysis can help identify the market demand, competition, and regulatory requirements that can affect the product's success. Next is problem gap analysis. A problem gap analysis is a process of identifying the gap between the current situation and the desired situation. It helps in identifying the problems that the project aims to solve and evaluating the available solutions. The analysis helps in defining the project requirements and setting the project goals and objectives. Suppose a company is facing issues with its customer service. In that case, a problem gap analysis can help identify the current challenges, customer expectations, and available solutions to improve customer service. After that, we have project identification and design. This phase involves defining the project idea, objectives, scope, and resources required to implement the project successfully. The team identifies the key stakeholders and develops a plan for managing the project. Suppose a company wants to implement a new IT system. In that case, project identification and design can help define the project scope, budget, timeline, and resources required for implementation. The next step is the implementation and monitoring phase. This involves executing the project plan and tracking the project's progress. The team regularly measures the project's performance against predefined criteria, identifies any deviation, and takes corrective actions to address any issues. Suppose a company is implementing a new marketing campaign. In that case, implementation and monitoring can help track the campaign's progress, measure the effectiveness, and take corrective actions to improve its success. And finally, we have evaluation. It involves assessing its success against the predefined criteria and identifying any areas for improvement. This phase helps in learning from the project's success and failures, which can be used to improve future projects. For example, after completing a construction project, the team can evaluate its success by measuring its cost, timeline, and quality against predefined criteria. This evaluation can help identify any areas for improvement in the future construction projects. Program theory determines what a program intends to do. It is necessary to construct a plausible and sensible model for how a program is supposed to work. This theory is based on a series of micro steps that make important assumptions about the program. Without a program theory, a project may even seem like a maze. Program evaluations are conducted for stakeholders to check the progress and are also utilized by the audience for knowledge creation. They are engaged in the evaluation process and play a participative role while showing an active interest in their program. Evaluators can also use stakeholders during evaluation, since the information may have to be shared with audiences. During an evaluation, being mindful of this terminology represents your values in front of the stakeholders and audiences as an evaluator and guides the evaluation practice to become more participatory. Before we delve deeper into these concepts, we must understand what a basic logic model means. Logic model is a systematic and visual way to present relationships among the resources you have to operate your program, the activities you plan, and the changes or results you hope to achieve. This is what a basic logic model looks like. You have your resources, followed by activities which make up the planned work. It is followed by outputs, then outcomes, then impact, which make up your intended results. Although these terms like output, outcome, impact sound similar, they are entirely different when we interpret them. Outputs are the desired objectives from the program, but they do not have a measurable impact on its beneficiaries. On the contrary, an outcome is the actual value addition that results from the output of the program. While outcome refers to specific and measurable short-term effects, impact can adopt a more comprehensive viewpoint, looking to broader and long-term effects. Having discussed a basic logic model, let's discuss the logic framework approach. It enables the main elements of a project to be concisely summarized and brings structure and logic to the relationship between project purpose, intended inputs, planned activities, and expected results. If used with flexibility, this approach to planning encourages creative thinking and promotes participatory engagement between all parties throughout the project lifecycle. Here, you can see a log frame, a tool to describe the results of an LFE project design process. These are some of the questions it answers. After determining the program purpose, resources, etc., we move on to the project implementation plan or strategic plan, which outlines the steps a team should take when accomplishing a shared goal or objective. This plan combines strategy, process, and action, and will include all parts of the project, from scope to budget and beyond. The implementation plan is a step-by-step guide for achieving project goals. A PIP will have the following components which vary depending on the nature of the project: objectives, scope statement, outline of deliverables, task due dates, risk assessment, and team member roles and responsibilities. Let's move on to understanding the results framework first, and we will also discuss some terms such as inputs, outputs, intermediate outcomes, outcomes, and impact, which are often used interchangeably but are different in this context. A results framework is a tool used in project or program management to organize and track progress towards achieving desired outcomes. Inputs refer to the resources, materials, or factors that are used in a process or system to achieve a specific goal, whereas outputs are the tangible or intangible products that are generated as a direct result of a process. Intermediate outcomes and outcomes sound similar, but they refer to different things. Intermediate outcomes are the short-term results that occur as a result of an intervention, but are not necessarily the final desired outcomes. They often serve as progress markers towards achieving the ultimate outcomes. On the other hand, outcomes refer to the long-term results that are achieved through an intervention. Lastly, impact refers to the broader and long-term effect achieved as a result of an intervention. It represents the overarching changes that occur at a societal, organizational, or individual level, and it often reflects the broader significance of the intervention in terms of its contribution to the desired outcomes. It's time to discuss results and monitoring framework in detail. A results framework depicts the different levels or chains of results expected from the intervention in a graphic display. The framework shows the long-term objectives, intermediate outcomes, and outputs that lead to those desired longer-term objectives and clarifies the expected time horizon to see changes in those outcomes. On the other hand, A monitoring framework provides the means for determining if a program is on course to achieve its aim. Development programs are based on an underlying theory of how proposed actions will achieve the intended results. Monitoring framework is the ongoing process of collecting and analyzing data, which focuses on activities and highlights implementation gaps to inform tweaks in deployment. Then we have the outcomes framework, which measures medium-term and longer-term outcomes, thereby aiding learning or adaptation. Decoding indicators. What is an indicator? We have come quite a long way into this course, which is why it is the perfect time to dig even deeper and learn about indicators. An indicator is a unit of information which is measured over time. It depicts change in condition under observation. A good indicator will be easy to understand, measurable, precise, and defined without any positive or negative value attached. Let us now understand how a theory of change can be applied. But first, what is a theory of change? As a specific and measurable description of a social change initiative, theory of change is a framework for understanding what the program's purpose is, what success looks like, and how the program will create value. It is the basis for decision-making for strategic direction, planning, measurement, reporting, and learning. But how is it different from other methods of describing initiatives? Well, TOC changes the way you think, starting with what you want to achieve and then working backwards to intermediate outcomes and any early-term changes to actions which are important to implement the desired changes. It also describes the context and brings to light how a program context interacts with program logic. It depicts a causal pathway that links activities to outcomes to big picture impact. It also requires underlying assumptions to be surfaced, tested, and measured. Now the question is, what is it used for? So TOC, which is additionally referred to as the co-creation process, is intended to facilitate an agreement among stakeholders on how and why the program will bring about change. Isn't the fact that intervention is needed enough? This can be answered with the help of a little description of how it works. Standard evaluation approaches such as baseline or project and control group are not sufficient to deal with complex interventions. Qualitative case studies are often added, but they still may not adequately explain the underlying mechanisms of a program. This is where the theory of change framework comes in. It helps unpack the black box of a program and understand the space between actual input and expected output. The black box of a program contains several theories of how and why the program will work. These are in the form of assumptions that need to be tested. However, stakeholders may have different perspectives on the black box, which need to be brought to light. Additionally, the black box may differ depending on the context, including natural resources, terrain, livelihood opportunities, markets, governance, regulations, people in power, cultural norms, and the needs of the poorest. It is important to note that change varies across contexts due to the scale of the program and its potential for replication. For a program to be replicable, it must have been successful in the past and fit well with the other sample. Understanding the theory of change and contextual factors can help improve the effectiveness and scalability of a program. We can now move to understanding the assumptions and preconditions associated with theory of change. Assumptions are conditions or resources that the program staff and stakeholders believe are needed for the success of the program, and that they believe already exist. They are crucial because, if inaccurate, they can completely alter how the program works. Some assumptions are implicit and more difficult to reveal, which requires probing from external facilitators. For example, in a training program, the underlying assumption is that the training center is accessible and women have the mobility to reach them. However, the assumption that a training center is accessible to all participants is not always valid. In many cases, women may face various barriers that prevent them from attending training programs, such as lack of transportation, cultural restrictions, or childcare responsibilities. Preconditions, on the other hand, need to be brought about for the program to flow from one logical state to the next. When working backwards from the long-term goal, preconditions refer to the earliest changes that need to occur to achieve the goal. All outcomes except the long-term outcomes are also preconditions. They are called that because they are conditions that must exist for the next outcome in the pathway to be achieved. For example, in a training program, the long-term outcome may be to improve the students' overall skills and knowledge. To achieve this, several intermediate outcomes need to be achieved, such as the students grasping the taught concepts, successfully applying those concepts in practical situations, and demonstrating an overall improvement in their skills.